is I have a Ubiquiti router. It's an edge router here. It's kind of like the Linksys router we looked at. It's got a lot more feature sets to it. And the Ubiquiti equipment, it's spelled funny. It's Ubiquiti, is dirt cheap. I mean, you can outfit everything. It's a little quirky to set up, but if you know any other, command line router, and that's what we're going to talk about, command line configuration of routers, this is something you have, I think you have to know if you're going to be in the business of configuring routers and switches across an enterprise that has thousands of routers and switches. If you have a small company, you can probably get by with just using the GUI all the time because you don't have that, you don't mess with them that often. But sometimes you have to go touch each and every switch in your enterprise. And trust me, you don't want to have to use a GUI to touch 10,000 switches. You'll be there for a month or longer. Okay, that's not fun. Okay, so in essence, what we'll be doing is kind of doing some overview, okay, of more about this glossary, and I'm going to give you some techniques on how to hold on to some of the buzzwords and keep them in your brain, so to speak. So what I want to start with is, let's pick something here. And I've got basically a hard copy textbook of the stuff that is on the test, and it's not perfect, but it's good enough. All right, here's a good one. Which of the following is a valid MAC address? And we've learned that MAC addresses have a format, and then it gives you, multiple guesses. You get to pick one. All right, so you pick your right answer. All right, now let's go play and learn where MAC addresses fit in the networking stack and how we can explore the MAC addresses all within stuff that's available to you. Okay, so kind of what we'll be doing today is step one. I'm going to be using Kali Linux, okay, and that's spelled K-A-L-I, and I guess I can put that on the board behind me. I haven't done a screen share yet, so we'll be using some Kali here today because it's got some really cool feature sets built into it. If you're a Windows bigot and you really, really like Windows, and Windows is your lifeblood, and that's how you make your money, you can actually install the Windows Linux host, the WSL, what is it, Windows Subsystem for Linux, with a packaged version of Linux, which I highly recommend you do to get started. Okay, and now I'm going to go do a screen share and show you what Kali Linux looks like. Now, what I did this morning is I created a new virtual machine running Kali Linux. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this screen because that's something for later. Once you boot Kali, this is what it looks like. Now, the version I installed in my virtual machine is the version that is designed to run live. Now, what does that mean? Well, you put it either on a CD or a USB drive and you boot the computer in question. And then you can use the tools in Kali to poke around on this box, okay? You can use it to change passwords. You can use it to do forensics. You can use it for all sorts of fun and interesting things, okay? And all right, so when I boot Kali, this is kind of what it looks like. But then over here, now, tell me if you can see this, because the black and the white, sometimes it doesn't show up very well. And am I coming in okay? I'm using the same microphone setup I used last night, which seemed to work. So can you see the screen? It should show the little dragon up here. That's, I think that's the.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, you can see the screen. Thank you very much. This is Kali Linux and its magic. Okay. Now, the reason I personally like Kali is it's open source, built on Debian, using the XFCE desktop, and the default shell is Z shell, which is what the default shell is on Mac. Long discussion goes here about Z shell and bash, but that's a discussion for another day. But basically, what you have is when you bring up Kali, you get all these, shall we say, collections of tools, okay? And Kali, they make it free for people because the company that puts this together is called Offensive Security. And they sell training, and their training is pretty darn intense. And they also offer certifications. But the thing it is, they give away this Kali Linux to kind of help you, oh man, I need to take a class on this. And some of the things that are in Kali Linux literally take you days to set up. Some of this stuff just takes forever. It's just not for the faint of heart. So let's look through what you get with Kali Linux. Information gathering. So remember, our question is MAC addresses. What are we going to do with MAC addresses? So notice all of these tools are used to do interesting Red Hat, Blue Hat types of penetration, okay? Now, here's some buzzwords. Here's SMB, SMTP, SNMTP, SSL. And you go, oh no, I got to learn all these terms. Well, but what you can do is you can poke around on these tools and then say, what do they do? And you can actually go in and take a look at them and say, oh, this is how it works. And you start making mental pictures of how the stack, the networking stack works. Now, this particular tool here, this is a tool that it won't work very well on my particular installation because I'm in a NAT arena. If I was to install Maltego on a machine that was connected to a flat network, this is a commercial item and they have a free version, okay? And this tool is what you would call unnerving. This is one of those tools that is really hard to set up. It takes a long time. And even to use it, you actually have to register it and put it together, okay? Because they want to keep track of who's using this, because this is definitely in the Red Hat category, okay? What this tool does is you set it up on, well, I can't minimize it. You set it up on a network and you just turn it on. Okay, you make sure your machine has a promiscuous mode, and it starts collecting data, and it starts drawing a picture of your map of your network, and it collects things like your MAC address and your IP addresses and the operating systems, and it starts dynamically drawing a map of your network. It also starts dynamically showing you traffic analysis between the hosts on your network. So you can see who's chatting with who, who's emailing to whom, and who's talking to somebody on the outside of your corporate network, like the fellow who outsourced his job at Facebook to a Japanese or a Chinese programmer. You heard that story. If not, you can Google it, you can find it. But in a nutshell, he was getting, 120,000 a year, and he paid the Chinese programmer 20,000 a year, and the Chinese programmer did his job. And he got caught using, the security team using tools like this, found him and said, "What are you doing? Why are people using your login and password from China?" And he was busted, and he was set free to pursue other opportunities. Okay. Now, this Maltego is a very complex tool. You can literally spend, 6 months on one tool. That is the way it is here with Kali, is each one of these tools, you can spend a lot of time learning these tools, okay? And I recommend you learn the tools that you need to do for your job, or specific what you need to do in front of you. Like if you are interested in security and cybersecurity and red team penetration testing, focus on those, okay? Like password attacks, sniffing and spoofing. What this does, this is a whole suite of tools. Oh, look, we talked about Mac, huh? What's this do? Mac Changer is a command line tool that lets you change your Mac. So I currently, if I type in IPA, here is my MAC address right there, okay? That's my MAC. And let's say I want to generate a random one for myself. I type in Mac Changer -R. Whoops, I need to give it a device. Sorry about that. ETH0. And no, this is 2E6, and it didn't change it. Why didn't it change it? Okay. Oh, I need to be root. So it changed it from, this is the permanent MAC, and its new MAC is now unknown. It's a, randomly generated MAC. I can still do networking. My MAC is no longer part of the TCP/IP packet. Now, is this a good piece of security? It depends. If you start at a low level and start building security profiles for anonymity, you actually have to start at a very, very low level. And where is the MAC stored? Who remembers? Nobody remembers. Quick, Google it. Where is the MAC stored? You can put it in chat if you don't want to open your mic. That's fine too. This is that's kind of an important, just a little bit important. Because it will.
Is it stored in the NIC?
Yes, you are correct. It is randomly stored in the NIC, and it's burned into something called an EEPROM, and basically it's randomized. And the first 6 bytes, or where I'm showing you 46 B8 D0, that tells you the vendor that created it. So if you look at my current Mac, or the one that says here, that has been allocated to VMware. So if people were doing forensics on our network, they could look at the MAC address and say, oh, I've got Dell equipment. I've got, uh-oh, I see some Linksys equipment here. Uh-oh, we don't want Linksys on our network. So we do MAC address IP port blocking. It finds the MAC address, it runs it against the table and says, oh, you've got a random address. I'm sorry, we won't let you on our net. Boom, can't get on. It does work that way on our wired network here, but our wireless network, they let random MACs connect, okay? So now I've just changed my MAC address and I'm in a NAT arena. So that means if I do, let's go up to where we're going next, the next layer. Let's do, you can do wireless attacks too. My kids did this when they were in college. They used social engineering to get the neighbors' passwords so they could get free internet. They'd go over and they'd chat up their neighbors and they'd be friendly, and and they just started, oh, by the way, I need to do an assignment. Can I borrow your wireless for a little bit? And most people don't check how many people have tied into their router. So they got free internet through college just by being, social engineering. They didn't know any tech. They just did social engineering. Okay. Social engineering tools. What I'm looking for, wow, there's some new stuff in here that's really pretty darned interesting. What I want to do is find routing, information routing. There we go. Let's see if I can find some route. Fuzzing. Now, if you're a web developer, some of these tools in here are extremely handy because there's techniques called cross-site scripting that if you're using a lot of JavaScript libraries from other people, somebody else can nefariously infect one of those libraries and get to your stuff on your website. Okay. All right. Wireless. I'm actually looking for some route tools. I'll just use Traceroute because that's basically the same thing. And then you can set it up. Now you can install Kali on a box. If you do that, make it a box that's dedicated to networking and don't put it on your network, okay? This is like opening all the back doors in the enterprise so you can have an easy access to it. I was at a doctor's office the other day and I saw that they had VNC installed on every single computer. And I said, oh my God, somebody can get in and just take over everything in that medical office. I'm going, that's not a good thing. And so I kept my mouth shut. Their ignorance is bliss, But let's say I want to do Traceroute here. Now let's see what this does. Now Traceroute exists on Windows as well, but it's spelled differently, okay? So basically all of these commands that we touch on today are in test out somewhere and you'll be responsible for them. And the way, an easy way to learn how a lot of this stuff works is to get yourself VirtualBox or VMware and create a bunch of computers and connect them with a network. Okay. And you can learn it. Or, I need to do that. I keep forgetting to tell everybody this. I'm going to take a side little blip here, and let me put this up here. The Computer Recycling Center, I think, something like that, CRCC. Let me look it up real quick so I can get it to you, because this way I won't forget it if I do it right this second. It's called Computer Recycling Center, Oakland. Free computers. There you go. It's called the E-Waste Collective. All right. And there's a big skull that they did one year at Black Hat, which was kind of fun to see that. I didn't go that year. But basically, I'm going to put this in my notes that I'm working on. I've been using my Jupyter notebook because I've been bridging between multiple machines, and I keep forgetting what machines have what tools, and this just makes it easy because then I can run it and I'm going to call this notes. So E-Waste Collective, what this allows you to do is get free computers. All you have to do is go pick them up. And they call first. And this is kind of their, they're saying, okay, select, for you or an individual, tell them you're a student and you want to do, you're a student and you want to learn networking. Tell them you need like 3 computers and you don't care really what they are. And they generally wipe them out. So there's no Windows on them at all because of the licensing. There'll be some flavor of Linux on them, okay, generally speaking. And then you print form or mail it, and then how it works, and you go pick it up. It has what you call a sidewalk warranty. The only thing they guarantee you is if the machine doesn't work, bring it back, they'll give you another one. That's the only thing they guarantee. Okay, now I want you to notice something. There's a wait list, okay? Now, why is there a wait list? Okay. What's in Oakland? The Bay Area. Who do you think has more high-tech, powerful computers? The Bay Area or the Central Valley? You got it. Bay Area has a lot. You can get a machine that is been obsolesced by somebody in the Bay Area that is more than state-of-the-art than what we have here on campus. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I need an old computer. Oh, here's one with 64 gig of RAM and 2 terabytes of disk. And the video sucks. It's only a Quadro 400 of the NVIDIA or whatever. But there's more than one place to do this. This particular company does it on purpose. You can go to an e-waste recycler and say, got any old computers? And if you put time into it, they might let you work on it and get one. I don't recommend that. But this is what you can, this is free, okay? All you got to do is go get it. E-Waste Collective. All right, back to our topic on hand, Traceroute. You can change a specific MAC address that isn't randomized. Yeah, you can randomize your randomized, okay? But that's not going to get you anywhere, because if I do Traceroute here, and I'm going to pop up into root. Now, I want you to notice in Kali, they give you a terminal emulator. This one is a standard user. And notice how it turns red. This is the root user. So my ID here is 0. That means this is the giver of data, the root, the God user, the guy that can destroy anything on the box. ID on the standard Kali user is 1000. This is pretty typical basic Unix installation, okay? And if you like the cool prompts, that's all related to the Z shell, okay? So I'm in root now, and I'm gonna do traceroute, and it gives me this completion. What I did is I typed trace and then or TRA, and then I hit the tab key. And this also works in bash. Traceroute. And let's traceroute to the New York Times.com. Okay. What it's doing is it's going from New York Times backwards to me. Okay. And notice this IP address right here. What's that IP address? Well, what's my IP address? How do we find IP addresses? In Windows, it's IP config. In Linux, it's IF config. And it's also IP. The IP commands have a lot to it. So you can, the IP space whatever is pretty much how networking is going. It's called Route 2. This is a suite of tools that you can install on your Linux box to get the modern tools for manipulating your network. These are also the tools that are bundled in almost all routers of significant heft, okay? Home routers, who's to say? But as far as business stuff, yeah, you're gonna have Route 2. All right, so this is IP, traceroute, and what it's doing is it's going there and it took 30 hops, 60 packets, and then here's an IP address. And let's see what my IP address is. IPA. Now, wait a minute. 168.79. Oh, look. What am I looking at here, folks? Here's my IP address. Now, if I say, let's do traceroute to, I'm going to go to a computer. But this would be interesting. I want to see if this works. Go to a computer here in the lab, and they're all named JMKLL, host name with the letter C, and then the domain name. It may die on me. Oh, no, it returns. Okay. So it is getting to it. There's my information. Now, if we do man on traceroute, okay, you have just about every letter in the alphabet as an option to play with, okay? So there's a lot of information. You can actually do traceroute just on a particular port, what protocol to use. And I want to use the one. And then there's the IP version 6. IP version 6, one of the things about that is if you are a network admin in the Central Valley working for a company of reasonable size, you probably will not need IP6, okay? We do not have IP6 here on campus, even though MJC and the district and Columbia College is one of the biggest installations of computers in the Central Valley. Okay, it's all IP4. Foster's is an IP6 because the network admin was bored and he wanted to convert to IP6. You normally won't see IP6 unless you're going to be working for AT&T networking or Spectrum or a big internet service provider, because there is a limit on how many IP4 addresses are out there. Okay. All right. So what the Traceroute is giving us is the ability to, we can drill down and say, okay, let's probe using different ways of figuring out how things work. All right. Let's use the Traceroute -G here. And I'll go again to the New York Times. See what I'm doing? I'm just playing with the commands that you read about in test out. But I'm using this thing with Kali Linux, okay? And you can install it on Windows, missing host. Let's go with that. What I'm trying to do is show you my, whoops, host missing argument. Okay. You know what? Let's use one of the tools that does some of this dynamically. Let's use this math again. And let's see. This is kind of an interesting way to do it. Net Discover, do they have that installed? Yeah, they do. This is a really cool tool. I use it all the time. Net Discover. And you have to give it an IP address to start with. And my subnet is what? I'm on 79. Notice this terminology. That's /24. And what I'll do is just change this to 0. Okay. Net disc. Oh, the spell would help if I could spell that. This. Yeah, I'm having a typo day. Oh, I need I think it's range. That's it. R minus R. All right. Now, what this is going to do is scan for every single machine on that subnet. Well, guess what? There's only 3. I'm sitting in front of 30 machines right now. Why do I only see 3? NAT. My network here is NAT. Okay. So let's say I want to see a few others. So what I do is I go down and I find my USB to Ethernet cable. Because of the way networking works here, I have to do it this way. And I'm going to go over here to that. This is the connection that gives me another IP address on another network. So I do IPA, and notice I have a new network card with a new MAC address. And notice in the time I hit this command twice, notice the IP address. So now if I run net discover on, because what I just did is I put in a network adapter in my virtual machine that puts me on the same subnet as a classroom. And I'm going to span everything, see how many goes. It's exploring, it's slugging away. It's finished. Oh no. Where'd they all go? Nuts. Ping is turned off enterprise-wide on campus. So tools like this won't work on purpose. So what I can do is I can log into one of the machines in the back room. Well, I don't need -y. And I believe it's this one. MS lookup. Oh, that's what it is. JPY note. Yeah, there we go. Can't find it. All right, let's look up another one. Grab node. Oh, 2. There it is. I'll use this one. Okay. This is in the rack. Notice I have a different IP address and I have a different subnet. Okay, let's do, I'm going to poke on this guy and I want to see what I can find out about this box without even doing anything. So the first thing I want to do is do Nmap, which is one of the tools I like. There are other ways to do this. This tells you what ports are open on this particular machine. So basically, open ports in the firewall is what this is doing. And ping is turned off enterprise-wide, except in room 233 or 232, which is where the Jeremy racks are. We're allowed to use ping between those machines. Okay. So you'll notice that Nmap isn't doing much because Nmap uses a ping scan. You can, like Traceroute uses ping. So if you want to use other tools, you can use the TCP/IP thing and turn that on. So what I'm going to do is, rather than show you what doesn't work, let's show you what does work. And I'm going to log in. Oops. Oh dear. Oh, that's the wrong IP address. You should have yelled at me. I need 171. No wonder Nmap didn't work. I'm trying to find deb node 02 in the rack, and I want to see what ports are open. Now, if you do man space Nmap, you can see it has a gazillion options. You can also script Nmap using a language called Lua. And on most installations, they have this thing called Nmap. It's basically a GUI that runs around it. Let's see if I can find it. See if it's in there. Nope, Lua was not designed for games. Lua was actually designed for another purpose. Came out of Brazil. and the fellows that put it together had to write it because at the time, the stuff they wanted to do was encumbered with licensing. So they had to reinvent the wheel, and they came up with Lua to do what they needed to do. And it's an interesting language. It's simple to learn. It's also very embeddable. It's very easy to embed it. So I guess they don't include it. It's just a pretty GUI that you put on top of it. Now, let's say I want to install that on my live box. I can do sudo apt install Nmap and see if it's available. May not be. Nope, not available. Okay. All right. So you can see I'm still probing, and it will sit there and keep going and going until you find something. All right. So what I want to do is log into this machine. Now we were on our way to NetDiscover. Whoops, root's not the right one. I wonder if I let root log in. I don't think I did. Nope. I've set up my SSH so root can't log in. You have to log in as a standard user. There's a config that says permit root. No. So here I am. I'm now in a box in the room. And now I can play with this NetDiscover. On the range on this particular subnet. SUDO NetDiscover. Oh, it's not found. Okay, let's do this. If you don't have SUDO, you can still get to root by doing this, SU space minus, and then you put in the root password. Now I'm root. You can see it, the prompt changes ID 0. Let's see if NetDiscover is there. Nope. So I do apt install NetDiscover. This is why I like the Debian and Ubuntu stuff. It's really easy to add stuff when it's not there. So I can now do NetDiscover. Range on my subnet. Why 24? Why 8? Why 16? I'll show you in a second. So these are all the machines that are available because ping is turned on for this subnet. Okay. Now, notice all my MAC addresses. They're tied to certain IP addresses. And basically, NetDiscover also is telling me, according to the database of this card, who made it. Okay, so there's some unknown vendors in there. Okay. And so it's on 7124. That one's unknown. So what does that mean? Well, you can go poke on it and see what's there. So let's see what I can find out about that particular host. Let's see if Nmap's installed on these boxes. Nmap on 10.18.171.24. Now, Nmap's going to work because I'm in the subnet. Ping is allowed to work in that subnet. Most companies do not. Oh, look, it's a Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi comes back as unknown vendor. Well, that just means NetDiscover doesn't have an updated database of all the Macs. Okay, so there's my MAC address, and it tells me it's Raspberry Pi. And yes, I have a Raspberry in one of the racks that I use as my serial console. Okay, All right. Now, seeing the Mac, I'm poking around using these tools in Kali. You're kind of getting the idea that this is what we want to do. Now, one of the other things that you'll have to know how to do is serial port communication. And I haven't really figured out the best way to show you this, but this is something that I do in the classroom. And by the way, who's available for cables? I can do it tomorrow night and then next Thursday. So I'll send out an announcement. It'll be a cable night, let's say from 5:30 to whenever, 5:30 to 8 or so. And if you can't get there at 5:30, no big deal, come in at 6 or 6:30 and then tinker with your cables. Even if you don't successful, 300-foot kepi, no, I don't have that many supplies. Sorry about that. Free stuff. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is use my phone and I'm going to join the meeting and turn on the camera. Don't connect on, turn off video, join. And then I think I can turn the video on backwards here. Okay. Start video, turn this off. No.
Recording in progress.
Whoa. Okay, that's the backwards. Turn the screen around the other way. There. I don't know how the echo is gonna. Do you get an echo, or is it just me? It echoes. Okay, I turned down my volume on my phone. Did that help? Yes. Okay. This is a serial cable that we use to plug in to a console. And you can see it goes to my Ubiquiti router here. And there's a button, there's a tag that says console. And this connector looks, for all intents and purposes, like Ethernet. It is not. It's an actual serial device. And the cable in question looks something like this, where there's kind of a fat end to it, and it plugs into your USB, and it creates a serial port. So it's basically a null modem cable that you plug into USB, and you plug it into your router. Now you can manipulate your router. You can also do this on servers. This is the kind of connector that we need to use on the old boxes that were donated to us. We ordered a bunch of parts and they didn't have all the right parts. So I assembled the parts that I could order and created this goofy looking cable. This plugs into your notebook, this side here. This goes into your notebook. And then this plugs into the back of the computer. And this is a serial console. The same principle applies to managing switches, servers. You can even do it on your own computer. Like you can use the serial console to manage a Raspberry Pi as well, but you need a special cable, okay? So this is the cable I have wired to this, okay? So what I'm gonna do now is exit the meeting off my phone. I think that worked, maybe, if not. I'm setting my phone down. So I'm now over on I've got my edge router connected to the tower here. And let's take a look at how we do this. All right. All right. Now, what I did previous to class is I made sure all the infrastructure worked, so I don't have to go through and demo for you how to get all this working through a virtual machine. Okay. Leave that for another day. If you're interested, I can help you with that. Okay. So let's see if I still have my things here. So you saw Net Discover. There's my MAC addresses. Now, where are MACs stored? Where is the table stored between MAC addresses and IP? ARP. And if you want to build your ARP tables, you can ping or connect. Okay. And then it creates a table. Any machine you touch will create an ARP table. Okay. And I'm going to close some of these windows so I don't get so confused. And here I am. Okay. What am I on? Well, let me show you what I did here. All right. What is this? I am actually connected. Notice it says right here, that's the name of it, Rack 2 West. And I'm connected to TTYS0. So when I log in, I am on the router now, but I'm using TTY. And I'll show you the tool I used in a minute here. I'll show you the connect. I'll show you what the results are. Now I have to configure my router, but basically what I have here what do I have? What is this? It's a Linux box. It's on MIP 64. Okay. My edge router is running Linux. Okay. All right. So this is this is why you need to know Linux, because a lot of your switches will run a flavor of Linux under the covers. And then on top of that, they have this thing that they use. This is what Ubiquity uses. Now, when you type in, whoops, can't do it from here. You have to do it from the standard user. Now, what I have is I'm in the router config options, okay? So you have to type in the word configure, and then you actually type in the commands you need to configure your switch, and you can type in a question mark. Whoops, that's not right. Yeah, that's right. Notice the tools that I've got here. Okay, so let's do show. This is how it's currently configured. And then when you edit it, you have to edit by line. So it's really easy to make mistakes. So before you start configuring switches, always back them up. Okay. All right. And this is basically how you configure your switches now and routers. This particular way of doing it is fairly universal. It works this way on the Fortinet equipment, the Cisco equipment with their iOS, the Ubiquity equipment. You always have, at least in the higher end stuff, some sort of serial console to be able to get connected to it. A lot of them have a GUI, so you can use the GUI on top of it, okay? And all you need to do for the GUI is to basically plug it in. But what am I doing to connect this box? This looks really primitive. Well, in some ways it is. Let me type in exit, exit, and I'll close this. Okay. Now open a new terminal. And what I did was I was using the command called screen. If you do a man space screen, it will tell you what it's doing. Now there's wrappers to screen and TMUX called BYOBU. But basically screen is like putty tell. It's used to the old, geez, I don't even know what they call it anymore. Windows 95 used to have a terminal emulator that would talk to a modem. This is basically what you got. This is a terminal emulator that's talking to a serial port, okay? And the way this works is you type in the word screen and you give it when you plug in your USB device, I guess I should show you that. I'm going to unplug it and then plug it back in. So I'm plugging it. And now what happens when I use this command called dmessage, you can see that I plugged this thing in. On Windows, it does it automatically for you, the plug and pray. So this is the name of the port that just got plugged in, okay? So if I type in screen, the name of the port. Now, this is all stuff you'll need for anything related to Cisco. You're gonna have to know this kind of thing. How to use the command line to manipulate their switches and routers. Okay. And so it's dev TTY USB 0, and then you give it the baud rate. Okay, these are in increments. It's usually printed somewhere in your documentation. And then what did it call it? Did I type it wrong? There, USB 0. Oh, dev T. I did a typo. There you go. And once it connects, it kind of scares you there. Oh no, it's broken. Hit enter and you get a login screen. Now, once you're logged in using screen, no mouse, no GUI, no pretty pictures. It's all command line stuff, kind of like using the DOS prompt. There's no way to use a mouse or GUIs, okay? This is just the way you do it. And then you log in with the particular user that you set up or the default, which I've disabled on this one. This is a project I've been working on and I haven't gotten very far on it. But basically, before I type in the word configure, I actually have a Unix box now. I can actually do stuff in the world of Unix using my Edge router. So if I happen to know, oh, it's a MIPS, I can load some of the Kali tools onto my router and have a very devious way to manipulate network. Okay. And this is something that I've had students do, is that they take Kali and they recompile it, shall we say, for a Linksys router. And then now they have a complete running copy of Kali on a Linksys router. So you put it up and it works like a Linksys router, but it has all the tools and logging of the Kali Linux, okay? So it could really collect some interesting things, okay? All right. Okay, so that's a serial port connection, and I wanted to make sure you at least saw that, okay, of how it works, because this is something you will need to know how to do, okay? There will be people where you work that know how to do this, but a lot of the switches are managed over the network now. And then that's basically, you may or may not have command line tools, but you probably have some sort of API to program against to be able to manipulate your switches at scale. Okay. All right. All right. Chat's been flying through and okay. Yeah, NetDiscover, libcap. You can recompile it, make it current. How they got minus, greater minus to illustrate in bash. I don't understand that question. When I unplug the device, I got, oh, it just means the connection broke. That's from screen. That's all that's telling you, is it screen broke. That's all that means. Is it now, when you unplug it, you have to reconnect, okay? Now, when you exit out of this, it's Control M, Q. There's a special key sequence to exit screen. Screen has a completely different key set, key binding than anything else. So you definitely have to read the man page on how to use screen, because it's one of the earliest tools that showed up on Linux. Because in the early days, you had Linux on a box and you had dumb terminals. You didn't have any PCs to connect to Linux, okay? All right. All right. And then if your baud rate's wrong, I got to show you this. This is a very common problem. So I'm going to connect, but I'm going to have the wrong baud rate. I'm going to use 9600, hit enter. And sometimes you won't get a connection. Sometimes you do. And then what ends up happening is you get a bunch of garbage on your screen and you can't even read it. That generally means you have the wrong baud rate. So let me go back to the root, because the root has the history. So let's use something a little closer, 38.4. That's very typical of a baud rate that's wrong. You get these lovely screens. I hit enter, it's doing something, but it's all wrong, okay? That's either your stop bit, your even, odd, parity, 8, 1, and none, or baud rate is off, okay? And there's a whole thing about serial communications that we don't get into in a great detail in the world of networking, okay? All right, now I've got the last few minutes here, and what I want to show you is what I did to get this Kali Live to work, okay? So what I'm going to do now is just turn it off. Beep, and I'm going to shut it down. And when I created my new virtual machine, I happen to be on VMware. The only thing I did differently is here. In the settings, I told it to use an actual image, okay? And turned it to say power on. So I download the image from the internet, put it somewhere on my disk, and I make sure that that is in my CD, and then I turn it on. And that's about it. Now, the other thing I did is I added shared folders. So if I want to take information from Kali and save it to the host machine, which happens to be a Windows box, I've set up shared folders. This also allows me to get into the C drive and poke around on it while it's running. Now, that could very easily destroy the box. So normally you boot Kali from a live and then don't, I'm doing it in a virtual arena here, so you can kind of see how it works. When you run Kali in the Windows subsystem for Linux, it's going to be on a NAT. And I don't know if I don't know the WSL that well. So I don't know if you can make bridge networking, but if you use an external connector, like I do, an external USB to Ethernet, you can probably get bridge networking. That makes your virtual machine as if it is connected to the router in the classroom, okay? All right. So Kali is your friend. You want to spend some time with it. look up a tool, read about it, find out what it does, and then make a couple notes. That way you don't forget it so fast. Okay. And now when I turn it back on, nothing is saved because it's booting from the ISO. I'm not saving anything, but I can go down here, Kali with USB persistence or encrypted persistence. Now this is designed to work off a USB, not an ISO. So it's probably going to give me one big old ugly error because it says, wait a minute, I don't have a USB. What are you trying to do? But I do have a hard drive that's uninitialized as part of this box. So I could initialize my hard drive in the VM and put stuff out there. But basically, I just want to show you the boot process here, what it looks like. And then the default login is Kali. Default password is Kali. Okay. So when the screen times out, log in with Kali and password is Kali. Okay. So here it is. And what I'm going to do is do an fdisk -L. It seizes my drive. So I could actually do this. I could say fdisk. This is all Linux. So don't worry if you if it doesn't. So I'm formatting it, new, give it something simple, write it, mkfs, ext4, and tell it the partition I just created. There it is. So now I'm on Linux, and now I have this drive I can store stuff on. And let's go to documents here and create a document, empty file, call it chunk.txt. Now I can edit this file. It uses mousepad, which is the default editor. This is a test. X or Q. Save. So I now have something saved on this volume that is out here, right here. So I've just put one file, I've initialized it and made it available, okay? All right. Now it works kind of the same way on the USB, it's just that you don't have to do that magic, okay? All right, and that's that. And I will get you live CDs with crypto miners. Don't do that. It's such a waste of time. Yeah, because what you're doing is, for example, if you have, you're running a miner, a crypto miner at work, you can end up getting yourself in serious trouble because you're using company resources for personal gain. That's like stealing, okay? And the laws are kind of draconian for that kind of thing, mostly because the energy costs to run crypto miners is ridiculously exorbitant, okay? I've had students put crypto miners on machines, but guess what? It gets destroyed and they lose it all. They put their wallet out there and they say, why isn't it running? Well, I trash the machines and rebuild them. What do you think? Okay. And they will find you here. Our network is very sophisticated and they will find you. Okay. Oh, I'm using all the, yeah, there's cameras everywhere in all the buildings. They know which machine you sat at. Okay. So yeah, don't do it. Stay on the right side of the law. Go get a bunch of free computers and build it at your house. Do it that way. Okay. All right. So I'm going to bring this machine down, power off. And there we go. And cables tomorrow night, starting at 5:30, going to about 8. And I will make sure, well, we better make it, I'll make it a little earlier than that. Like, I'll make it to 4:30 to 8, because that way the building will be open. And if you come in late, I'll give you maps so you'll know which doors to knock on of where we will be, okay? 4:30 to 8. It probably won't go that long because most people, because this is all done for free. You don't get any extra points. There's no extra credit. There's no pressure. There's no harm. There's no foul. It's just for you to practice making cables, okay? All right, so that'll be Thursday, the 17th. And I may do one more later in the semester, but don't count on it, okay? Things in my life are kind of going, shall we say, off the rails, and I have no control over a lot of it. So I'm just gonna have to ride the wave. And I'm not gonna guarantee I'll be able to do this again, just based on family stuff. It's the way life is sometimes. It waxes and wanes. All right, and you don't need to bring anything. Notepad if you want to take notes. But I'll have all the tools, I'll have the cable, I'll have the ice cubes, and then you'll make a cable. Okay, that's kind of how to do it. No, I don't have those kind of tools. Those are expensive tools that says how long the cable is and then where the break is in the cable. No, that's way beyond the scope and the cost and the budget of a junior college. Okay. Feel free to make $1 million and make a donation back someday. Okay. All right. So I'm turning off my screen share here. Last question. Yeah, networking. Well, it depends on some networking tools. The stuff that I will have for you will cover about 85% of what you need on a normal job, minus a punch-down tool if you're using a patch panel. Okay. And I don't even have one of those anymore. Because we have the cable testers, we have the crimpers. Okay. Yeah, Traceroute, it shows the expected. Yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, folks, any more questions? Use Traceroute on any site. It always shows you the same address, no matter what the site. Couldn't tell you. You might want to read up on Traceroute running on Windows. Is the class location for tonight already posted somewhere? No. It's in room 227 upstairs. And I'll send a map out to everybody. And it's got an external entrance, which is why we're going to use it. And I'll let security know we're going to be here. And the other thing is make sure you have all your COVID protocols. You know, if you have your phone app with the voucher and the test and all that stuff. And we will be wearing masks because we have to. Okay. No, all this information will be sent out today. Okay. After class, after the video gets processed. So I'm going to stop the recording.